Chapter 1. Witnesses outside the fence. The desert at night is a place of silence so vast that even the crunch of gravel underfoot sounds like thunder. For decades, men and women have stood on the ridges surrounding one of the most secretive facilities in the United States, Area 51, waiting for the silence to be broken. They are ranchers who have worked the land for generations, truckers stopping along the extraterrestrial highway to rest their eyes, amateur astronomers with telescopes pointed not at the stars, but at the black horizon. All of them share one hope: to glimpse the extraordinary crossing into the ordinary sky. Some witnesses describe nights when Groom Lake seems alive with strange lights, orbs that rise silently from behind the mountains, hovering at impossible altitudes only to vanish in an instant. Shapes that drift smoothly across the desert floor as though skimming on invisible water. Triangles that form in the darkness and then dissolve like sparks. For the untrained, these might be dismissed as flares or aircraft. But many of the observers are far from naive. They know the sound of a C-130 transport, the rumble of a Black Hawk helicopter, the bright flare of a fighter jet afterburner. What they report seeing defies those familiar signatures. No roar of engines, no contrails, no conventional sense of flight. Only silence and motion that does not fit human technology. In the 1980s and early 1990s, before the government extended the restricted perimeter, there were vantage points with clear views across Groom Lake. Freedom Ridge and Whitesides became pilgrimage sites for UFO enthusiasts. On some nights, groups of watchers gathered with binoculars and camcorders, scanning the dark horizon. One mining prospector later recalled how, just after twilight, a flat oval shape rose from behind the southern ridge. It glowed faintly blue, hovering for several seconds before sliding behind another ridge. Minutes later, helicopters swept the area with searchlights as if looking for something, or someone. To the prospector, the message was clear. He had seen what he was not meant to see. As the years passed and the government closed those high vantage points, observers moved farther away, to Tekaboo Peak or stretches of public desert land. The climb to Tekaboo Peak is punishing, more than 3 miles over rough terrain with little cover from the sun. Yet even today, dedicated skywatchers make the trek, hauling water and cameras, hoping for a brief spectacle. Most nights yield nothing but silence, the stars unwavering in the desert sky. But every so often, someone returns with a memory burned into their mind. A silver disk reflecting moonlight. A triangle of lights moving in perfect synchronization. A single orb that shoots upward like a flare yet vanishes without sound. Ranchers from the valleys nearby tell their own stories. They are practical people, accustomed to recognizing aircraft on sight. But they remember nights when the desert behaved differently. Instead of engines breaking the silence, light itself seemed to carve the darkness. Orbs skimmed across scrub brush at low altitude, then rocketed skyward without any trace of propulsion. Some hovered long enough for the ranchers to get a second look, hanging motionless despite the desert wind. A few report lights that danced in formation, as though controlled by something intelligent, before dispersing in directions no squadron of jets could manage. And then there are the camo dudes. Locals call them that because of their uniforms and their habit of waiting in unmarked trucks on high ground. They are the silent guardians of the boundary. Approach too closely, and they appear, wordless, between you and the fence line. Photographs exist of their vehicles parked on ridges, binoculars trained on intruders. Some observers claim that just as they set up optics, Unusual lights suddenly appeared in the sky. Whether coincidence or intimidation, the effect is the same. The desert watchers know they are being watched in return. In the early 2000s, a man from Las Vegas made repeated trips with a long zoom lens. One morning, he claimed to capture images of a diamond-shaped craft hovering above the runway. The metallic edges shimmered as if the object itself bent the sunlight. He managed only a few frames before security trucks arrived from opposite directions. His film was confiscated, his equipment searched, and he was escorted back toward the highway. He left with nothing but memory and suspicion. To this day, he insists what he saw could not have been a conventional aircraft. Skeptics argue that Area 51 has always tested experimental technology, stealth fighters, drones, radar platforms, that to the untrained eye might look otherworldly, and perhaps many of the sightings can be explained that way. But even among experienced pilots and former military personnel, stories persist of objects that disobey the rules of aerodynamics. Lights accelerating instantly without inertia, craft pivoting at right angles without banking, or orbs hovering without sound at altitudes no helicopter could manage. These are not descriptions of known prototypes. They are descriptions of something else. One particularly memorable account came from a driver along the Extraterrestrial highway in 1995. He pulled over to stretch his legs when he saw 3 glowing orbs above the southern mountains. They arranged themselves into a perfect triangle, moved together in silence, then, without warning, 2 disappeared instantly. The third shot upward and faded into the stars. Minutes later, a convoy of military trucks thundered past on the road, heading toward the southern perimeter of the base. The driver watched them disappear into dust clouds and knew he had seen something unusual enough to warrant a response. The most dedicated observers often describe their efforts as a ritual. They know the odds of witnessing something extraordinary are slim, yet they return again and again. For them, it is not only about evidence, but about being present at the edge of the forbidden. Standing under the vast Nevada sky, eyes straining against the dark horizon, they feel part of a tradition stretching back decades. Even when nothing appears, the emptiness itself carries meaning. The ridges, the fences, the unmarked trucks, all speak of secrets hidden in plain sight. And every once in a while, those secrets leak through, if only for seconds. A craft rising vertically without sound, a flash of metallic reflection vanishing into the night, a formation of lights breaking apart in impossible directions. For the witnesses, these moments are unforgettable. They return home unable to explain what they saw, but equally unable to dismiss it. Their accounts spread by word of mouth, in late-night conversations, in UFO forums, in whispered retellings at roadside diners. Each story adds a piece to a puzzle that seems unsolvable, yet refuses to fade. For skeptics, these are the exaggerated tales of dreamers, the mistakes of tired eyes in the desert. But for believers, they are glimpses of a truth the government works tirelessly to conceal. And so the ridges remain occupied, the desert roads still host watchful campers, and the night sky over Groom Lake continues to draw attention, because in the balance between silence and spectacle, mystery thrives. The witnesses outside the fence know they may never be proven right, yet they keep watching, hoping for another flicker of the extraordinary to cut across the dark horizon. Chapter 2. Summit, Nevada, and Groom Lake. In the middle of Nevada, the desert stretches endlessly, a dry expanse of pale clay and jagged ridges that look lifeless at first glance. But hidden in that emptiness is a place that has drawn more speculation than almost any other patch of land on Earth. Groom Lake, the heart of what the world calls Area 51. To understand the mystery, One must first understand the stage, a desert chosen not by accident, but because it hides as well as it reveals. Groom Lake itself is no longer a lake. Thousands of years ago, water carved a shallow basin nearly 3.5 miles wide. When the water vanished, what remained was a flat, natural runway of white clay, hardened by centuries of sun and wind. To most, it appears barren, a scar of earth stretching across the desert floor. To engineers and test pilots, it was a perfect landing ground, able to accommodate aircraft, or something far stranger, that could not risk a conventional tarmac. In every direction, the lake bed is broad, smooth, and open, an arena built by nature for flight. The isolation of Groom Lake is part of its allure. Mountains ring the basin like natural walls, their ridgelines forming a jagged crown around the flat expanse. From nearly every angle, the terrain blocks a clear view of the lake. Only a handful of high ridges miles away offer any vantage point, and those, too, are constantly monitored. In the desert surrounding Groom Lake, there is no cover, no forests, no buildings, no natural camouflage. Anyone approaching can be seen long before they arrive, and anyone watching can be intercepted before they get too close. This geography is security in its purest form. The land itself is a barrier. Above Groom Lake, the sky is even more tightly controlled. Officially designated as Restricted Airspace R4 1808 North, it is one of the most forbidden patches of air in the United States. Civilian pilots who stray too close are immediately warned and sometimes escorted out by military jets. The rule is absolute. If something is flying here, it is meant to be here, and no one outside the government is allowed to see it. For believers in the alien connection, this is the crucial point. If there were ever a place to hide something extraordinary, Groom Lake would be the ideal vault, isolated, protected, and designed for secrecy. The base itself, built along the lake's edge, has expanded over decades. Long hangars capable of concealing passenger jets line the perimeter. Some appear to be built into the hillsides, their entrances angled so they cannot be seen from above. Roads stretch across the lake bed, disappearing abruptly, as if leading to hidden doors or underground facilities. Rumors suggest vast tunnels beneath the surface, chambers carved into the desert itself, where craft could be moved without ever touching open air. Whether these stories are fact or speculation, they add layers to Groom Lake's mythology. Above the surface, the emptiness of the desert. Below it, a labyrinth of secrets. What makes Groom Lake's story compelling is not just its secrecy, but its proven history. In the 1950s, the CIA used this desert stage to test the U-2 spy plane, an aircraft that could fly higher than any before it. Later, the A-12 ox cart, capable of Mach 3 speeds, roared above this same clay bed. Each of these planes was hidden here for years before the public ever knew they existed. From a distance, their shapes, sleek, angular, unfamiliar, looked nothing like conventional aircraft. Those who saw them might have mistaken them for something unearthly. And so the line between fact and rumor blurred. If planes decades ahead of their time could be hidden here, why not something beyond human invention entirely? Satellite images taken in recent decades show Groom Lake continuing to grow. New hangars appear, runways extend, strange markings scar the clay as if testing left its imprint. Each new construction sparks fresh speculation. Was the larger hangar built for a larger craft? Was the extended runway meant for something that doesn't fly like an airplane at all? In this desert, even construction projects become part of the mystery. To outsiders, every expansion looks like preparation for something unusual, something not yet revealed. Security at Groom Lake is absolute. Workers are flown in daily from Las Vegas on unmarked planes, known locally as Janet flights. Once at the base, they are escorted to specific zones, told only what they need for their tasks, and nothing more. Extreme compartmentalization ensures that no one person sees the full picture. If alien technology were hidden here, it could be kept within a handful of individuals, while thousands of others work in ignorance on unrelated projects. The system itself is designed to keep secrets alive. To stand at the edge of Groom Lake, even from miles away, is to confront stillness. The desert floor glows pale under the sun by day and seems almost luminous beneath the moon at night. Buildings on the horizon appear small and insignificant against the vast clay expanse. Nothing moves unless it is meant to move. Nothing is seen unless it is meant to be seen. This stillness is deliberate, a canvas painted blank so that whatever truly happens here remains invisible. For the military, it is a place to hide cutting-edge technology decades ahead of public knowledge. For believers, it is the vault of another civilization's machines. What makes Groom Lake unique is not only the desert that hides it, but the narrative it invites. Other bases can be observed from hillsides. Other runways share skies with civilian flights. Not here. Groom Lake is total secrecy embodied in land and sky. Every element, the mountains, the desert floor, the restricted airspace, conspires to keep its secrets buried. And when extraordinary measures are taken, it is hard not to assume something extraordinary is being protected. In the end, Groom Lake is more than a dry lake bed. It is a symbol, a stage on which rumor and reality overlap. For skeptics, it is a test site for advanced military aircraft, nothing more. For believers, it is the hiding place of technology not of this earth. Both agree on one point. Whatever happens on that pale expanse of desert clay, it is not meant for public eyes. And until the fences fall, Groom Lake will remain what it has always been, a desert that holds its secrets tight. Chapter 3. Ansankila Trenbao Troy. Night in Nevada is not like night anywhere else. The desert does not simply darken, it becomes an ocean of silence, a canvas where every star seems to burn brighter. Out here, away from the glow of Las Vegas and Reno, the heavens appear endless. Against this backdrop of eternity, Groom Lake lies still, its pale surface reflecting the faint glow of the moon. And it is in this silence, in this emptiness, that witnesses for decades have reported the strangest lights they have ever seen. Some describe them as orbs, white, red, or bluish, that rise from behind the mountains, hover motionless, then vanish as if a switch had been flipped. Others speak of lights zigzagging across the night sky, stopping abruptly, then darting away at impossible angles. A few insist they saw brilliant triangles of light, flying in perfect formation before breaking apart in bursts of acceleration. No matter the shape, the stories share a common theme. What appears above Groom Lake does not behave like any aircraft known to humankind. Observers often note the silence. Conventional aircraft announce themselves with thunderous engines or the rumble of jet turbines echoing across the desert. But these lights move without sound. One group camping north of the base recalled how a glowing sphere drifted directly over the perimeter fence, large as a car, yet producing nothing but silence. It hovered for a full minute before accelerating straight into the sky, vanishing without a contrail, without a boom, without anything left behind. The witnesses watched in awe, their ears straining for a sound that never came, Patterns seem to emerge with time. Many of the most dramatic sightings occur just after sunset, when the desert floor is still lit, but the sky above is darkening. In that contrast, the lights shine clearly. Others are spotted in the hours before dawn, when Groom Lake is said to be most active, taking advantage of windows when foreign satellites are least likely to pass overhead. For the dedicated sky watchers who return again and again, these twilight and pre-dawn hours are the moments when mystery is most likely to appear. Skeptics point out that Area 51 has always been the testing ground for experimental craft. During the Cold War, spy planes like the U-2 and the SR-71 were so unusual in design that casual observers could easily mistake them for alien technology. Later, the F-117 Nighthawk, with its sharp, angular silhouette, looked more like a spacecraft than a fighter jet. It is possible, skeptics argue, that the strange lights over Groom Lake are simply the next generation of prototypes, decades ahead of public knowledge. But even among those with military or aviation backgrounds, there are reports of maneuvers that defy the limits of physics. Vertical climbs without acceleration, hovering at extreme altitudes, instantaneous right-angle turns. These are not characteristics of human-made machines, at least not any that have been revealed. One former Air Force pilot recounted an unsettling encounter while flying near the restricted airspace. At 25,000 feet, he noticed a metallic sphere pacing his aircraft. It had no wings, no engines, no visible means of propulsion. For nearly a minute it matched his speed perfectly. Then, without warning, it shot upward so fast that it left no visual trace. It might as well have teleported, he later remarked. Officially, his report went nowhere. Unofficially, it became another piece of the puzzle. Even seasoned ground observers describe lights with movements inconsistent with experimental aircraft. One night in the 1990s, a group of enthusiasts stationed themselves on public land with night vision scopes. Just past midnight, 3 glowing orbs rose slowly from behind the Groom Mountains. They formed a triangle, hovered, and then accelerated so quickly that they vanished in less than a second. Some in the group believed they had witnessed a test of classified aircraft. Others swore they had seen something not of this earth. The debate continues, but the memory remains. At times, the lights seemed to toy with their observers. A witness in the mid-2000s recalled watching a bright blue orb rise above the runway. It hovered, pulsed twice, then tilted and streaked upward at an impossible angle. Weeks later, he returned to the same spot. Again the light appeared, but this time a dim red glow followed at a fixed distance, as if 2 objects moved in formation. To the observer, it felt less like a test flight and more like a display, deliberate, almost theatrical. Security complicates the picture. Those who watch the skies near Groom Lake know they are being watched themselves. Locals call the silent patrols camo dudes, men in unmarked trucks stationed on ridges, binoculars in hand. Witnesses have noticed that lights sometimes appear shortly after these vehicles arrive in the area, raising suspicion that the base may intentionally allow certain displays to be seen. Are these deliberate misdirections? Or are they genuine slip-ups, moments when something extraordinary escapes the veil of secrecy? No one can say for sure. For some, the explanation lies not in aliens, but in strategy. A few researchers believe the U.S. military might use Groom Lake skies as a stage, letting experimental craft be seen at a distance to blend them into UFO lore. By encouraging speculation about aliens, they divert attention from the reality of advanced human technology. Others believe the opposite, that the military does everything possible to conceal alien-derived flights, and the sightings are genuine mistakes, brief moments when technology not of this earth is visible to the public. In either case, the lights themselves remain unexplained. Witnesses are often ordinary people with no desire for fame. Ranchers who know the sound of every aircraft that passes overhead, truckers resting along Highway 375, hikers drawn to the barren beauty of the desert. Their accounts are remarkably consistent, despite coming from different decades and backgrounds. Silent hovering, instant acceleration, right-angle turns, lights that glow, pulse, or shift color in ways no known aircraft does. Whether one believes them or not, the pattern is difficult to ignore. There is also the matter of scale. Some witnesses report lights the size of stars moving in the distance. Others describe glowing objects large enough to blot out constellations as they drift across the night sky. A handful claim to have seen silhouettes so massive they could only be compared to passenger jets, yet utterly silent, without wings, without exhaust. These accounts are the most unsettling. For if true, they imply not just advanced propulsion, but entire craft operating in plain view over one of the most restricted airspaces on Earth. The desert itself adds to the mystery. At night, with no trees, no buildings, nothing but scrub and stone, distances are difficult to judge. A light low on the horizon might be miles away, or hovering just above the ground. Heat distortions and atmospheric effects can play tricks on the eye. Skeptics seize on this, arguing that many sightings are illusions. But illusions cannot explain the consistency of certain details across decades, across witnesses who never knew each other, yet describe the same impossible maneuvers. For believers, the lights over Groom Lake are the strongest evidence that Area 51 harbors technology beyond human origin. They are the living proof, the visible tip of an unseen iceberg. For skeptics, they are a reminder that secrecy breeds imagination, and that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. And so the debate endures, fed by each new account, each photograph too grainy to convince, each video too distant to confirm. In the end, the strange lights are not just about what is seen. They are about what is felt. The awe of watching something defy gravity, the unease of realizing you cannot explain what your eyes just witnessed, the quiet certainty that you have glimpsed a piece of a larger mystery. For those who have stood under the Nevada sky and watched lights move in ways no aircraft should, the experience leaves an imprint that no skepticism can erase. They return home with questions, not answers, but also with a story that joins countless others in the growing legend of Area 51. Night after night, decade after decade, the desert sky continues to host these fleeting displays. Whether they are advanced human prototypes, illusions of light, or evidence of visitors from beyond our world, one truth remains. Groom Lake skies are never entirely empty. Somewhere above that pale desert floor, beyond the silence, strange lights continue to move. Brief, extraordinary reminders that not everything in our world has yet been explained. Chapter 4, Bob Lazar Vakauchuyen S4. By the late 1980s, Area 51 had already become a shadow on the public imagination. Rumors of secret aircraft, tales of hidden hangars, whispers of lights moving in the Nevada sky, all of these painted the base as a vault of mystery. Yet nothing compared to the storm that broke in November 1989, when a man named Bob Lazar stepped forward with a claim that would forever alter the legend of Groom Lake. In his account, the true secret of Area 51 wasn't the base itself, but another facility nearby, a hidden complex he called S4. Lazar presented himself as a scientist hired to work on propulsion systems. According to his testimony, S4 lay south of Groom Lake at a dry basin called Papoose Lake. The hangars there, he said, were built directly into the mountainside. Their entrances slanted to mimic the slope, so that from above they looked like part of the natural ridge. Getting inside was no casual matter. Personnel were flown to Groom Lake, placed on buses with blacked-out windows, and only then driven into S4. Even within the already secretive world of Area 51, this facility existed in a league apart. What Lazar described inside S4 was staggering. 9 flying craft, none of them built by human hands. Some were damaged, some intact, but all, he insisted, were of alien origin. The vehicle he was assigned to study was a small, disc-shaped craft he nicknamed the Sports Model. Its smooth, metallic hull bore no seams, no rivets, no welds, nothing that suggested human engineering. Inside, the cabin was cramped, fitted with seats far too small for an ordinary adult. The walls curved seamlessly, offering none of the switches, wiring, or panels Lazar expected to see in advanced aerospace machines. His assignment, he claimed, was to examine the propulsion system. At the heart of the craft sat a reactor powered by a substance then unknown to modern science, element 115. Lazar asserted that this exotic element produced a gravitational field, allowing the craft to bend space-time itself. Rather than flying by thrust or lift, it moved by pulling its destination closer, a concept that even now feels closer to science fiction than physics. In Lazar's telling, this was the reason the craft could hover silently, dart at impossible speeds, and make sharp turns without subjecting its occupants to crushing G-forces. The structure of S4, as Lazar recalled, was one of absolute compartmentalization. Workers had no access to the entire facility. Each was given a narrow task, told only what was necessary to perform it, and forbidden to discuss their work with others. Even within his assignment, Lazar claimed he saw only fragments of the bigger picture. Yet those fragments were enough. Technical briefings he claimed to have read spoke of recovered craft, some retrieved from crash sites, others unearthed from ancient deposits. The implication was chilling. Humanity had been recovering alien technology for decades, perhaps centuries. Skeptics quickly challenged Lazar's credibility. Official records of his employment and academic history were incomplete or missing. Critics argued he fabricated his story, pointing to inconsistencies and the absence of physical evidence. Yet Lazar knew details about Groom Lake, flight schedules, security measures, the layout of certain areas, that were later confirmed by other sources. This paradox made his account impossible to dismiss outright. He may have exaggerated, but many believed he must have seen something. One of the most provocative aspects of Lazar's story involved flight tests. He claimed he knew when certain craft would be flown, and on several occasions took friends to remote ridges near the restricted zone. There they reported seeing bright lights rise from the desert, making sharp turns and accelerating in silence. To Lazar, these were test flights of the very craft he had glimpsed inside S4. Eventually, security caught wind of his outings. According to his account, his clearance was revoked, and his involvement ended abruptly. Central to Lazar's legacy is element 115. When he first spoke of it, the element had not yet been synthesized in laboratories. Years later, in 2003, scientists in Russia successfully created Moscovium, a version of element 115, though it was unstable and decayed in less than a second. Supporters saw this as partial vindication. Lazar had named an element years before its official discovery. Skeptics countered that predicting its existence was inevitable, since the periodic table itself implied higher elements would eventually be created. The debate continues, but the coincidence gave Lazar's story enduring weight. The tale of S4 reframed Area 51 in the public imagination. Before Lazar, Groom Lake was seen mainly as a testing ground for experimental aircraft. After him, it became synonymous with alien technology. UFO enthusiasts latched onto his testimony, while mainstream media wrestled with whether to treat him as a whistleblower or a hoaxer. Even decades later, his interviews are revisited, dissected for clues, analyzed for contradictions, and shared by those convinced he risked everything to reveal the truth. Some researchers argue Lazar was part of a disinformation campaign. By seeding fantastical claims, intelligence agencies could deflect attention from real black projects, stealth aircraft, drones, or exotic propulsion research. By making Area 51 synonymous with aliens, the military could keep prying eyes focused on myths rather than classified programs. Others counter that this explanation is too neat, that the consistency of Lazar's details, combined with corroborating accounts of strange lights and craft, suggests there was more to his story than invention. Even today, Lazar remains a polarizing figure. To believers, he is the insider who pulled back the curtain on humanity's greatest secret. To skeptics, he is the architect of a myth that refuses to die. Yet whether true or false, his testimony reshaped the narrative of Area 51. No longer was the base just a desert airfield. It was, in the public imagination, the front line of contact between human civilization and something beyond. The enduring power of Lazar's story lies not in proof, there is none, but in possibility. He described hangars carved into mountainsides, buses with blacked-out windows, a sports model craft powered by an element unknown to science, and a secrecy so complete that even those inside knew only fragments. These details form a picture vivid enough to captivate, vague enough to resist disproof, and in that balance, the legend thrives. Whether Bob Lazar revealed truth, fabrication, or a carefully crafted diversion, his story turned Area 51 from a Cold War testing ground into a symbol of cosmic secrecy. He placed a name, S4, on the lips of millions, suggested technology that bent the rules of physics, and implied that beneath the Nevada desert, humanity was studying machines not built on Earth. For those who believe, he remains a hero. For those who doubt, he is a storyteller. But either way, his voice echoes still, entwined with the fences and hangars of Groom Lake, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful mysteries are not in what we prove, but in what we dare to imagine. Chapter 5. Kong Nga and Phi Tu Yen and Jiao Trong Area 51. Picture this. You step into a hangar so vast that your footsteps echo endlessly across the cold floor. The air is dim, heavy with the smell of oil and metal, and before you loom shapes hidden under tarps, shapes that don't resemble anything we call an airplane. Some are smooth discs, edges curving without rivets or seams. Others are long cylinders glistening like glass, or sharp-edged triangles that seem more suited for piercing the vacuum of space than slicing through air. This is the image that has haunted Area 51's legend for decades. The idea that within its most secretive hangars rest craft not built on Earth. Rumors of hidden spacecraft inside Groom Lake's hangars stretch back to the 1950s. Witnesses describe bays buried beneath the desert, chambers carved into the earth where massive objects could be stored away from satellites, and prying eyes. In some versions of the story, hangar doors are camouflaged to match the surrounding rock. When closed, they vanish into the landscape. From above, nothing betrays their existence. From the ground, they appear as part of the mountain itself. Such concealment, believers argue, would allow entire fleets of unusual craft to be hidden in plain sight. Over the years, alleged insiders have provided fragmented glimpses into these hidden spaces. One contractor claimed he accidentally walked into the wrong bay in the late 1990s and found himself staring at a silver disc nearly 30 feet across. Its skin gleamed under bright lights, smooth as liquid metal, with panels removed and placed on workstations where technicians in clean suits studied them with precision instruments. He said he saw no engines, no wires, nothing that resembled the machinery of human aircraft. Within minutes, security escorted him out and reminded him never to enter that sector again. Another story comes from a truck driver hired to deliver specialized materials to the base. Though his path was blocked by partitions, he swore he glimpsed several large objects beneath tarps. The contours he described were too uniform, too symmetrical, unlike any fuselage he had encountered in his decades of hauling aerospace parts. He did not know what he saw, only that it was unlike anything familiar. Such accounts, though impossible to verify, repeat the same theme: objects hidden in Groom Lake's hangars that bear no resemblance to conventional aircraft. Skeptics argue that these mysterious shapes are nothing more than prototypes, stealth planes, drones, or radar testbeds. After all, Area 51 has a long record of hiding human technology that was decades ahead of its time. The U-2, the A-12 Oxcart, and the F-117 Nighthawk all remained secret for years, tested in the same desert skies that today host rumors of alien craft. To skeptics, the extraordinary security surrounding Groom Lake proves only that the base continues this tradition. But even some insiders who have worked on classified projects insist that certain objects go beyond prototypes. No wings, no exhaust, no aerodynamic surfaces, designs that seem to ignore the rules of flight itself. Some descriptions are especially haunting. A technician claimed to have seen metallic panels that refracted light as if alive, surfaces that shimmered and shifted color under different angles of illumination. Another spoke of materials impossibly light, yet resistant to any attempt at cutting or bending, as though the substance remembered its shape. These accounts echo the Roswell stories of memory metal, fragments said to crumple like foil, yet return instantly to their original form. Whether myth or reality, the consistency across decades of testimony suggests that something unusual may indeed be stored inside these walls. Satellite images add to the intrigue. In the 2000s and 2010s, analysts noted the construction of unusually large hangars at Groom Lake. Some structures appeared capable of housing aircraft far larger than modern bombers or fighters. Runway extensions carved across the lake bed suggested launches or landings requiring unprecedented space. Were these built for drones with enormous wingspans? For stealth cargo planes? Or for something far stranger, something whose profile demanded concealment on a massive scale? Every new building fueled speculation. Every expansion whispered of a growing collection of secrets. Believers point out that hiding such craft underground would serve multiple purposes. Not only would it protect them from satellite detection, but it would also allow transportation and testing without risk of exposure. Rumors speak of tunnels stretching for miles beneath Groom Lake, wide enough for trucks or rail systems. Craft could be moved from hangar to hangar, studied in isolated chambers, and never once see open air. If true, this subterranean network would be one of the most extensive engineering projects ever attempted in secrecy. But in the world of Area 51, such claims are never proven, only repeated. Eyewitnesses sometimes describe scale that challenges imagination. Some talk of disks the size of passenger jets, resting silently on supports. Others recall cigar-shaped vessels, stretching as long as commercial airliners, tucked into shadowed bays. And then there are the smaller craft, sleek, compact, with interiors that make no sense for human crews, seats too small, panels that glow to the touch, cockpits without buttons or levers. If these testimonies are accurate, the collection at Area 51 may not be uniform. It may be a museum of impossibilities, a gallery of machines from different times, places, or perhaps even different civilizations. Yet the strongest argument for hidden craft is not the testimonies themselves, but the logic of secrecy. If the government had ever recovered alien technology, whether from Roswell or another crash site, where could it possibly be stored? Few places on Earth offer the isolation, infrastructure, and security of Groom Lake. With its natural barriers, restricted skies, and decades of experience concealing advanced aircraft, Area 51 fits the role perfectly. Believers argue that it is not just the best candidate, it is the only candidate. Still, doubt remains. Skeptics emphasize that secrecy alone does not prove alien technology. Black projects require the same level of security. Cutting-edge drones or experimental propulsion systems would be hidden with the same care. To them, the alien narrative is a convenient distraction, a myth that masks the reality of human ingenuity. And yet, the line between the extraordinary and the impossible blurs at Groom Lake. When a witness describes a craft that hovers silently, shifts color, or accelerates without inertia, even skeptics struggle to explain it away entirely. For those who believe, the image is irresistible. Vast hangars at the edge of a dry lake bed, each door concealing a secret shape. Some gleaming silver, others matte black, all silent, all waiting. Perhaps some are dismantled, their parts spread across workstations. Perhaps others sit intact, ready to be tested under the cloak of night. And beneath it all, perhaps, lies a labyrinth of vaults and laboratories where the most incomprehensible machines are kept from the world. In the end, the mystery of Groom Lake's hidden craft is less about evidence than about possibility. Decades of rumors, leaks, and testimonies have painted a picture too vivid to ignore, yet too elusive to confirm. We may never see the inside of those hangars, never walk among the objects hidden within. But the very existence of secrecy, of locked doors, camouflaged entrances, and buildings too large to explain, ensures that speculation will continue. For believers, these hangars hold machines from another world. For skeptics, they house the next generation of human technology. For everyone else, they remain symbols of the unknown, silent giants on the edge of a desert lake that no longer holds water, but still holds secrets. And so the legend endures. Each rumor of a silver disc, each photograph of a new hangar, each whispered account of underground vaults adds to the tapestry. Groom Lake's hangars are not just buildings, they are vaults of imagination. Containers of possibility. Until the day their doors open, whatever lies inside, alien or human, will remain hidden, fueling one of the most enduring mysteries of our time. Chapter 6. Tuyet ham ngam va konge bikat jiao. If there is one idea that has persisted almost as strongly as the tales of alien craft at Area 51, it is the belief that what we see above ground is only the surface. Beneath the white clay of Groom Lake, believers say, lies an entire hidden world, tunnels stretching for miles, underground hangars carved into bedrock, laboratories lit by sterile white light, where secrets too extraordinary for the open air are studied in silence. In this theory, the desert floor is not a barrier but a lid, covering chambers filled with machines and materials not meant for human eyes. The roots of the underground narrative go back decades. In the Cold War, the U.S. military built subterranean command centers to survive nuclear war. It is not far-fetched to imagine Area 51 adopting similar methods. In fact, geological surveys of the region hint at excavations that do not match natural formations. Researchers studying aerial photographs have pointed to roadways that vanish into mountainsides, only to reappear miles away, or ground patterns that suggest voids beneath the surface. Whether these anomalies are evidence of vast bunkers or simply the result of mining and construction, they feed the idea that Groom Lake's most guarded secrets lie below. Alleged insiders have added fuel to the story. One former contractor described how trucks carrying sealed containers would arrive at the base, only for their cargo to be taken underground by personnel while the drivers were escorted away. He never saw what was inside, but he believed the precautions suggested something far more valuable than ordinary military equipment. Another spoke of elevators hidden within plain buildings, dropping deep below the desert to chambers where sections of unusual materials were suspended by cables, isolated from vibration and interference. If true, these descriptions suggest a level of compartmentalization far beyond even typical black projects. Some stories claim that these underground facilities are not only vast but connected. Believers argue that tunnels stretch beneath Nevada, linking Area 51 to other secret installations such as Tonopah Test Range or even distant facilities in neighboring states. In this vision, recovered craft or materials could be moved without ever risking exposure on highways or runways. A network of subterranean rail systems or truck corridors, they say, allows sensitive cargo to travel unseen across the desert. Skeptics call this idea fanciful, pointing out the enormous engineering challenges. Yet for many, the sheer secrecy of Area 51 makes such a project plausible. Within these hidden chambers, rumors say, alien technology is dismantled and studied piece by piece. Engineers are assigned to fragments of unknown origin, panels, alloys, devices, without ever seeing the whole. One might spend years studying conductivity. Another might analyze unusual heat resistance. Few, if any, are shown the complete object. This way, no single person can reveal the full scope of what is hidden underground. It is a system built to protect secrets from insiders, as much as from outsiders. If the goal were to reverse engineer technology beyond human understanding, such compartmentalization would be essential. Descriptions of the underground labs are almost clinical. Some accounts speak of long corridors with biometric scanners at each junction, doors that open only to those with both the right clearance and an escort. Inside, rooms contain suspended craft sections, metallic surfaces that ripple under certain wavelengths of light, and alloys kept under controlled temperatures. Others describe vault-like chambers, where materials are stored in sealed containers, some said to glow faintly when exposed to heat or electromagnetic fields. One story tells of technicians working behind observation windows, manipulating instruments remotely to avoid direct exposure to substances with unknown properties. For skeptics, these accounts could easily describe advanced human research. Exotic metals, experimental composites, and stealth materials all require careful study under controlled conditions. Underground labs would protect them from espionage and environmental interference. Yet for believers, the sheer strangeness of the descriptions, the shimmering surfaces, the impossibly light metals, the fragments that seem alive, points to something beyond human invention. They argue that secrecy this extreme exists not simply to protect technology from foreign powers, but to protect humanity from the shock of revelation. The most provocative twist in the underground theory is the suggestion of black labs, facilities buried so deep they are shielded even from seismic detection. These chambers, according to some whistleblowers, are where the most sensitive experiments occur. Attempts to activate alien power sources, to replicate propulsion systems that manipulate gravity, or to understand materials that defy physics. If such labs exist, they may contain the keys to technologies that could revolutionize energy, travel, or warfare. Yet none of it has ever reached the public domain. Why? Believers suggest the answers are too disruptive. Economies could collapse, geopolitics could shift, and control over humanity's future could change hands overnight. The absence of visible evidence is paradoxically the strongest support for the underground theory. Despite decades of rumors about alien craft at Area 51, no clear photographs of such objects have surfaced. Satellite images show buildings and runways, but no disks or cylinders. To believers, this proves the craft never touch the open air. They are hidden entirely underground, studied in pieces, never exposed to cameras or chance witnesses. If nothing were hidden, skeptics ask, why has secrecy remained absolute? Why has the base grown larger, more fortified, and more inaccessible with each passing decade? There is also the matter of deliveries. Reports circulate of unmarked trucks escorted into the base, their cargo sealed so tightly that even drivers are ignorant of what they carry. Upon reaching the perimeter, base personnel take over. In some versions, the trucks are driven into hangars, and their contents transferred underground by freight elevators. For those convinced of alien technology, these operations are the lifeblood of the hidden labs, the way materials from crash sites or secret recoveries enter the vault below Groom Lake. Some researchers suggest that even if alien craft are not stored here, the underground network could house something just as consequential: the infrastructure to test revolutionary propulsion. Chambers shielded from surveillance would allow experiments with high-energy reactors or experimental drives without risk of exposure. If the military had even fragments of alien propulsion systems, this would be the logical environment to study them. And if none of it is alien, then these labs may still be where the next generation of human technology quietly takes shape. What makes the underground theory compelling is its symmetry with Area 51's history. Just as the desert's mountains and skies provide natural secrecy above ground, so too would tunnels and chambers provide it below. Just as aircraft like the U-2 and F-117 were tested years before the public knew of them, so too could exotic propulsion or materials be hidden for decades. The idea fits too neatly, and perhaps that is why it endures, because it makes sense that the deepest secrets would be buried deepest of all. For skeptics, the underground narrative is a perfect myth. It explains the absence of evidence by declaring that evidence is literally buried. It transforms every new construction project into a clue, every sealed delivery into a hint, and it ensures that no matter how much we learn about Area 51's surface, the real story can always be said to lie below. But for believers, the consistency of details across accounts, the elevators, the sealed chambers, the compartmentalized projects, suggests that at least part of the story is true. Whether the vaults hold alien craft, experimental reactors, or nothing extraordinary at all, the idea that they exist refuses to fade. In the end, the theory of underground storage at Area 51 is not about what we can prove, but what we cannot disprove. The absence of evidence becomes its own evidence. Each new hangar, each expansion of the perimeter, each unexplained delivery feeds the belief that something lies beneath. Perhaps the desert floor is nothing more than clay and rock. Or perhaps, deep under Groom Lake, machines from another world rest in silence, waiting for a day when their secrets will no longer be contained. Until then, the tunnels remain invisible, the vaults remain sealed, and the mystery remains alive. Chapter 7. Nguyen to 115. Bian. Among the many claims tied to Area 51, few have ignited as much fascination as the story of a strange substance said to be the key to alien propulsion. Element 115. To most of the world, this number on the periodic table was nothing more than a prediction, an empty slot waiting to be filled by scientists someday in the distant future. But to Bob Lazar, and those who believe him, Element 115 was not a theory. It was real, it was stable, and it powered craft that were never meant for Earth's skies. Lazar first described the element in the late 1980s, long before its official discovery. He claimed that within the hidden halls of S4, he saw small wedges of a metallic substance handled under extreme security. Each piece, he said, was heavy, dense, and dull in appearance, stored in protective containers to shield those around it from dangerous radiation. But the material's true power revealed itself when placed inside a reactor. It could generate a gravitational field. In his words, the craft did not fly in the way we understand. Instead, it bent space-time itself, drawing destinations closer rather than moving faster. To skeptics, these statements sounded absurd. Gravity manipulation was beyond the realm of physics as we knew it. Yet Lazar's claim contained a haunting detail. At the time, element 115 had never been synthesized, not even in laboratories. Then, in 2003, more than a decade later, scientists in Russia succeeded in creating moscovium, an unstable isotope of element 115 that decayed in less than a second. To believers, this was validation. Lazar had spoken of the element long before it became official science. To critics, it was coincidence. They argued that predicting higher elements was inevitable, since the periodic table itself made their existence obvious. But Lazar went further than prediction. He insisted the version he encountered was stable, unlike the laboratory sample. He described how the element, when bombarded in a reactor, released energy capable of distorting gravity. With such a power source, craft could hover silently, accelerate instantly, and perform maneuvers no human pilot could survive. Right-angled turns at supersonic speed, vertical ascents without thrust, hovering without lift. These were the natural outcomes of a propulsion system built not on combustion, but on space-time manipulation. It was a story that stretched physics to its breaking point, yet somehow refused to fade. The mystery of element 115 lies not only in its alleged properties, but in its scarcity. According to Lazar, only a small quantity existed, measured in mere hundreds of grams. It was not something that could be synthesized easily on Earth. Instead, it had to come from elsewhere, harvested from alien craft or mined on worlds with conditions unlike our own. Believers suggest that extraterrestrials might have stable isotopes of the element, formed under cosmic pressures or nuclear processes unknown to us. Skeptics argue that such stability contradicts everything we know about nuclear physics. But the idea remains compelling. What if nature allows versions of matter that our science has not yet discovered? Stories from alleged insiders sometimes reinforce this notion. One contractor described seeing a spherical reactor core emitting a faint blue glow, with technicians in protective suits monitoring instruments that tracked gravitational distortions. He was never told what the material inside was, but later, when Lazar's interviews circulated, he became convinced he had glimpsed element 115 at work. Another account speaks of deliveries arriving at Area 51 under extreme escort, convoys of trucks guarded as though carrying treasure. Their cargo, some speculate, could have been fragments of the same element, moved with the utmost caution because of its irreplaceable value. The legend of element 115 also intersects with broader UFO reports. Some researchers point out that many UFO sightings worldwide describe the same behavior: silent hovering, instantaneous acceleration, impossible turns. If these objects exist, they would require a propulsion system fundamentally different from anything we know. Lazar's claim provides a neat, if controversial, explanation. Element 115 becomes the missing puzzle piece, the fuel that explains the otherwise inexplicable. For believers, this symmetry is too strong to ignore. Skeptics, however, remain firm. They argue that Moscovium's instability is proof enough that Lazar's claims are impossible. If the element decays in microseconds, it cannot be used to power anything, let alone bend gravity. Some go further, suggesting Lazar appropriated his claims from speculative physics articles circulating in the 1980s. The fact that Moscovium eventually appeared on the periodic table, they say, is coincidence, not vindication. Science, after all, had already predicted its existence. What Lazar added was imagination, not insight. Yet the story refuses to die. Even within scientific circles, the notion of stable isotopes of heavy elements lingers. Some theorists suggest that islands of stability may exist on the periodic table, points where unusual nuclear configurations create long-lived isotopes far heavier than anything we have made so far. If such an isotope of element 115 exists, Lazar's claims may not be as far-fetched as they sound. The possibility, however slim, keeps the debate alive. Perhaps what is impossible for us is trivial for a civilization more advanced by centuries or millennia. The implications are staggering. If element 115 or something like it truly powers alien craft, it would represent not just a new fuel, but a new physics. Energy production could be revolutionized. Gravity itself could be harnessed. Travel across the solar system, or even beyond, might become as practical as air travel today. This potential is precisely why the element has captured imaginations so powerfully. It is not just another exotic material, it is a key to rewriting humanity's future. And if it exists in hidden vaults beneath Groom Lake, then the Nevada desert may guard not just machines, but the means to reshape civilization itself. Believers argue that the secrecy surrounding element 115 is exactly what we would expect if it were real. Such a substance, if revealed, would destabilize economies, topple industries, and shift global power overnight. Energy monopolies would collapse. Transportation would be transformed. Entire nations might rise or fall based on who controlled the element. To keep such a thing hidden would not only be logical, but inevitable. In this view, Area 51's silence is proof, not denial. The less said, the more likely something extraordinary is being concealed. And so the legend grows. Each mention of element 115 in UFO documentaries, each debate among scientists, each grainy interview clip of Lazar fuels the fascination. Even those who dismiss him cannot resist the pull of the mystery. Why did he name an element that had not yet been discovered? Why are his descriptions so consistent with accounts of craft seen in the skies over Groom Lake? Why, After decades of skepticism, does his story still resonate? Perhaps because it offers something rare, a detail concrete enough to debate, yet elusive enough to evade conclusion. In the end, the mystery of element 115 is not about proof. It is about possibility. The possibility that in a vault beneath the Nevada desert, there lies a metallic wedge with properties we do not yet understand. The possibility that alien craft move not by thrust or lift, but by bending the very fabric of space around them. The possibility that humanity's future has already been glimpsed, then locked away behind hangar doors. Whether myth or reality, the story of Element 115 embodies the essence of the Area 51 legend, a secret too powerful to reveal, too strange to ignore, and too enduring to ever fade. Chapter 8. Biological Evidence and Alleged Autopsies. If stories of flying discs and strange alloys spark curiosity, then the claim that Area 51 hides alien bodies pushes fascination into something deeper, something unsettling. It is one thing to imagine metallic craft locked away under tarps, but another to picture small beings, fragile and unfamiliar, resting in sealed chambers beneath the desert floor. For decades, whispers of autopsies and biological evidence have trailed the legend of Groom Lake, suggesting that Area 51 is not only a vault for machines but also a morgue for visitors from beyond. The origin of these claims can be traced back to Roswell, 1947. The official line was simple: a weather balloon had crashed. But in the alternative version that has thrived ever since, the wreckage included bodies. Witnesses described small humanoid figures, 3 to 4 feet tall, with oversized heads and slender limbs. In this narrative, the wreckage was initially taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Later, many believe, the remains were quietly moved west, eventually ending up in Nevada, where security and isolation were unmatched. Area 51, with its layered restrictions and vast desert cover, became the perfect vault. Over the years, alleged insiders have painted similar pictures. They speak of climate-controlled chambers buried far below the surface where stainless steel tables hold sealed containers. Some are small, said to contain only tissue samples. Others are large enough to preserve entire bodies. The air is cool, the lights stark white, and entry is restricted to personnel with the highest levels of clearance. Some accounts describe Blue Labs or Level 3 facilities, code names whispered to refer to the sections where biological evidence is kept. These descriptions consistently emphasize sterility, airlocks, decontamination showers, negative pressure rooms designed to prevent contamination. Whether these rooms exist or not, the idea itself has taken firm root in the mythology. The alleged autopsies are even more controversial. Some testimonies come from individuals who claim to have participated. Others say they saw photographs, film reels, or briefing documents. The descriptions rarely deviate. Beings with large craniums, small facial features, thin elongated limbs, and skin grayish or parchment-like. The most famous example entered public consciousness in the 1990s with the so-called alien autopsy film, produced by Ray Santilli. Though later admitted to be a reconstruction, the film reignited interest by giving visual form to what many had only imagined. Even when exposed as inauthentic, it left behind the lingering suspicion that real footage might exist, hidden in vaults beneath Area 51. Some of the more disturbing stories suggest that not all the recovered beings were dead at the time of recovery. A handful of alleged witnesses have spoken of specimens still alive, though barely, breathing faintly, twitching, or displaying subtle movement. These accounts are the most contested, but their very existence fuels speculation. If such beings lived even briefly after recovery, were attempts made to communicate? Were they treated as patients, prisoners, or subjects? Silence from official sources leaves only speculation, and speculation is fertile ground. From a scientific standpoint, handling any non-human biological specimen would require extreme precautions. Laboratories designed for biosafety level 4 pathogens already exist on Earth, sealed facilities where researchers wear protective suits, where air systems are independent, and where waste is incinerated. The descriptions of Area 51's alleged biological facilities mirror these precautions, but with an added sense of mystery. Instead of viruses or bacteria, the threat here would be physiology from another world, carrying unknown risks. Whether infection, chemical toxicity, or simply unpredictability, the danger of mishandling would be immense. Skeptics counter that these descriptions could easily be misinterpretations. Test dummies used in high-altitude parachute tests during the 1950s were often recovered in strange conditions, fueling UFO rumors at the time. Experimental mannequins or classified medical equipment might easily be mistaken for alien corpses by those seeing only fragments. And of course, disinformation cannot be ignored. Intelligence agencies have a history of planting stories to mislead, and tales of alien bodies could serve as a convenient smokescreen to conceal sensitive but entirely human programs. Yet the consistency of certain details across unrelated testimonies is difficult to dismiss. Even decades apart, witnesses describe similar anatomical features: small bodies, oversized heads, large eyes, thin limbs. They also describe similar storage conditions: sealed rooms, negative pressure, constant temperature, and humidity. If fabrication, it is a fabrication remarkably consistent across generations. This consistency is what keeps the biological narrative alive, even when hard evidence is lacking. Some versions of the story suggest that the autopsies were not performed at Area 51 at all, but at other secure facilities, Los Alamos, for example, before the remains were later transferred to Nevada for long-term storage. Others argue the opposite, that Nevada's isolation and secrecy made it the ideal location from the start. Either way, Area 51 has become the focal point in the public imagination, the place where science fiction might be science fact, hidden in stainless steel and fluorescent light. A particularly eerie thread in these accounts is the suggestion of biomechanical integration. Some claim that the craft and their pilots were not separate, but part of a single system, machines fused with biology, responding to thought rather than controls. If true, then studying the bodies would be inseparable from studying the craft. The physiology of the beings might hold clues to propulsion, energy, or even communication. In this view, the autopsies were not merely medical examinations, but efforts to decode the interface between life and machine. The implications, if real, are staggering. Understanding alien biology could open insights into medicine, neuroscience, and genetics far beyond our reach. But such knowledge could also be destabilizing, challenging religious, philosophical, and social frameworks. For those who believe, this is precisely why secrecy is absolute. To reveal alien bodies would not only change science, but redefine what it means to be human. Better, some argue, to keep such truths locked away than to unleash the chaos of revelation. The government's position has never wavered. Area 51, officials say, is a testing ground for advanced aircraft, nothing more. When pressed about alien remains, they laugh, deflect, or remain silent. But in a strange way, this silence sustains the legend. If there were truly nothing to hide, Why not dismiss the rumors decisively? Why not allow independent inspections, or release records proving the absence of such evidence? The refusal to engage creates an empty space into which speculation flows, filling the silence with whispers of bodies in vaults. Even among skeptics, the biological rumors are acknowledged as one of the hardest to kill. Machines can be explained as prototypes. Strange lights can be written off as drones, but the idea of alien bodies strikes at something primal, the need to know if we are alone. If witnesses are telling the truth, then humanity has already encountered life beyond Earth. If they are not, then the persistence of their stories still says something about our hunger for connection, our readiness to imagine beings different from ourselves. Ultimately, the alleged autopsies remain where they began, in shadow. No photos have been verified. No specimens have surfaced. No documents have been authenticated. Yet the stories endure, carried forward by those who insist they saw something small beneath a sheet, or who swear they glimpsed tissue samples in sealed containers. These fragments are enough to keep the question alive. Beneath the Nevada desert, is there not only alien technology, but alien life itself? Perhaps the truth is simpler. Perhaps there are no bodies, no autopsies, no biological evidence. But perhaps the truth is more extraordinary, that somewhere under Area 51, in chambers locked tighter than any vault, rest beings from another world, fragile, silent, and preserved as proof that humanity has never been alone. Until those doors open, the question will remain unanswered, fueling one of the most powerful and haunting threads in the legend of Area 51. Chapter 9. Insider Accounts and Leaked Testimonies. For all the satellite images, desert hikes, and grainy photographs taken from the ridges around Groom Lake, the most powerful and enduring stories about Area 51 come not from outsiders, but from those who say they have been inside. These are the so-called insiders, engineers, guards, pilots, contractors, and technicians who claim to have glimpsed things that the rest of the world has only speculated about. Their accounts vary in detail, sometimes contradicting one another, but together they form a picture that, at least for believers, feels more convincing than any photograph. If machines or even bodies from another world have been hidden in Nevada, it is these voices, whispered from the shadows, that carry the evidence. The earliest leaks date back to the 1960s. One man, claiming to be a radar technician stationed near Groom Lake, told of nights when strange blips appeared on his screen. They accelerated to impossible speeds, stopped dead in mid-air, and vanished instantly. When he asked superiors for explanations, he was told bluntly, "Don't ask again." That warning echoed the culture of secrecy that defines Area 51. Insiders weren't encouraged to understand the whole picture. They were ordered to perform their narrow tasks, ignore what didn't make sense, and remain silent. Security personnel, too, have added their fragments to the puzzle. A former guard described being assigned overnight duty inside a massive hangar. His orders were strict: remain in the booth, do not approach the floor, and never look under the tarps. But curiosity is human, and one night, while the crew was on break, he stepped out. He saw just enough: a curved hull with no rivets, glowing faintly under the lights, reflecting as if the surface itself were liquid. Within seconds, he was escorted away by 2 other guards. By morning, his post had been reassigned. Whether real or imagined, his story illustrates how secrecy operates, with absolute control and swift correction. Contractors often provide the most fragmented testimonies. Hired for maintenance or deliveries, they are given only partial access. A truck driver may deliver sealed crates, but never see what's inside. An electrician might be led through confusing corridors so that he cannot reconstruct the building's layout afterward. Each sees only a sliver of the whole, yet sometimes those slivers are telling. One machinist alleged he handled a metallic sheet so light it could be folded like paper, but which instantly snapped back to its original form without a crease. Another technician spoke of control panels that glowed when touched, with no visible power source. These stories, unverifiable yet persistent, suggest technologies outside human convention. The testimonies that grip people most are those involving beings. A man claiming to have served as a medic at the base recalled being rushed into a sealed room where a small figure lay on a gurney. Its proportions were wrong for a human: large head, thin arms, and eyes too big for its face. He said he was ordered to monitor vital signs for 2 nights. On the third, the bed was empty, and the subject was never mentioned again. Was it an alien? A mannequin for experiments? He did not know, but the experience haunted him, and years later he broke his silence in interviews, even as skeptics dismissed his account. What complicates the insider narrative is the possibility of disinformation. Intelligence agencies have a well-documented history of planting false stories, especially during the Cold War. Mixing truth with fiction confuses adversaries and muddies the waters for researchers. Some experts argue that at least part of the Area 51 mythology was cultivated deliberately, giving cover to real black projects while diverting attention with rumors of aliens. In this view, insiders may themselves be victims, manipulated into believing extraordinary things to protect classified but entirely human programs. Yet this explanation doesn't erase the consistency of certain details across decades, details that suggest more than just fabrication. One recurring element in almost every testimony is compartmentalization. Workers were given access to only what they needed. A propulsion specialist never spoke to an avionics engineer. A guard might not know what lay inside the building he protected. This ensured that no one could leak the full story, and it also explains why insider accounts are always fragmented. Each person reveals only a corner of the puzzle. To skeptics, this proves nothing. To believers, it proves everything. The pattern of secrecy itself is evidence that something extraordinary is being concealed. Some insiders describe seeing test flights firsthand. According to them, craft were brought out only at night, timed to avoid satellite passes. They performed maneuvers no conventional plane could match, hovering silently, darting upward without acceleration, pivoting in midair without banking. Observers stationed on nearby ridges sometimes reported seeing the same lights, their accounts matching those of the insiders. Was it advanced human technology, or something not of this earth? The truth remains buried in the desert night. The risks for these insiders are real. Many spoke only after retirement, or after leaving the United States. Some described being threatened with loss of pensions, or even followed and harassed after sharing their stories. Others hid behind anonymity, their voices scrambled and faces shadowed in documentaries. A few went further, revealing their names and risking reputations to stand by what they saw. Believers hail them as whistleblowers. Skeptics call them fabricators. But either way, their stories have ensured that Area 51's reputation as the epicenter of alien secrecy has endured for decades. The credibility problem remains unsolved. Without photographs, documents, or physical samples, insider accounts cannot be proven. Memory can falter, motives can be questioned, and stories can be embellished. And yet some details ring with authenticity. The description of hangar layouts later confirmed by satellite images, the recognition of security protocols later acknowledged in declassified documents, the knowledge of flight schedules later matched by independent observers. These details do not prove the extraordinary claims, but they suggest that many insiders really were where they said they were. And if they were there, then the possibility that some part of their story is true cannot be dismissed. For skeptics, insider accounts are cautionary tales. They reveal the human tendency to fill gaps in knowledge with speculation, to transform glimpses into grand narratives. But for believers, these testimonies are puzzle pieces. A guard sees a glowing hull. A machinist handles memory metal. A medic watches over a non-human patient. Alone, each account is fragmentary. Together, they sketch a picture of something extraordinary concealed in the Nevada desert. Whether that picture reflects reality or imagination is the question that drives the debate. In the end, the stories of insiders and leaked testimonies represent the heart of the Area 51 legend. They bridge the gap between speculation and experience, offering details vivid enough to believe, yet elusive enough to doubt. They ensure that the mystery is never settled, only deepened. For every skeptic pointing out contradictions, there is a believer pointing to consistency. For every denial from officials, there is another testimony surfacing from the shadows, and so the narrative continues, sustained not by proof, but by possibility, whispered by those who claim to have walked where the rest of us can only imagine. Perhaps the most telling detail is this: not one of these insiders has ever produced definitive evidence. No photographs smuggled out, no fragments of material, no preserved samples. All we have are words, and yet those words have been enough to fuel decades of fascination. In a world where secrecy itself is suspicious, their stories thrive in the void. Whether they reveal truth, deception, or a mix of both, the insiders' voices are what keep the legend alive. Until the day the hangar doors open, these testimonies remain the closest the outside world may ever come to knowing what lies inside Area 51. Chapter 10. The UFO hotspot above Area 51. The skies above Groom Lake are some of the most restricted anywhere on Earth. Officially designated as Restricted Airspace R4808 North, they form an invisible dome over Area 51, closed to all civilian aircraft and most military flights. Anyone who strays too close is intercepted within minutes, warned off, or in some cases escorted away under armed guard. In theory, nothing unauthorized ever moves in this sky. And yet, for decades, observers stationed at the fringes of the Nevada desert have reported seeing things that defy explanation: strange lights, impossible maneuvers, silent craft darting across the night. For many, the most compelling evidence of Area 51's secrets isn't underground, but overhead. Watchers gather on ridges like Tikaboo Peak, the last legal vantage point since Freedom Ridge and Whitesides were closed off in the 1990s. It is a grueling climb over 3 miles of desert terrain, carrying water, gear, and the knowledge that they are being watched in return. From there, the base appears as a cluster of buildings and runways, tiny against the vast white expanse of the dry lake bed. Most nights, nothing unusual happens, but sometimes, just sometimes, the sky comes alive. Witnesses describe bright orbs rising silently from behind the mountains, hovering for minutes before shooting straight upward into the stars. Others report lights gliding smoothly across the horizon, then zigzagging at speeds no conventional aircraft could withstand. Some lights pulse, shift color, or vanish instantly, as if turned off like a switch. To the untrained eye, these might be dismissed as flares, drones, or tricks of the atmosphere. But many of the people who report them are far from untrained: ranchers who know every helicopter in the region, former military personnel who understand flight patterns, civilian pilots who recognize aircraft silhouettes. When they say something looks unusual, their credibility carries weight. Patterns have emerged over the years. Sightings often occur just after sunset, when the desert floor remains illuminated, but the sky above darkens, a perfect contrast for spotting luminous objects. Others happen in the hours before dawn, when the base is most active under the cover of darkness, timing test flights to avoid foreign satellites. Some watchers swear the busiest nights follow stretches of silence, as though the base schedules concentrated testing windows. And more than once, witnesses have reported increased ground activity, convoys, patrols, unusual security presence, on nights when the skies later filled with strange lights. One former Air Force pilot described flying near the restricted zone in the 1980s. At 25,000 feet, he spotted a metallic sphere pacing his jet. It had no wings, no exhaust, no visible propulsion. For nearly a minute, it matched his speed, then darted away so fast it seemed to vanish. He never filed an official report, knowing how such claims were treated, but years later he told the story, convinced that what he saw was no experimental aircraft. Civilian observers tell similar stories. In the 1990s, a group of UFO enthusiasts camped near the perimeter fence with night vision scopes. They watched 3 glowing orbs rise together, form a triangle, hover silently, then accelerate upward until they disappeared in less than a second. Some believed they had seen a secret test of advanced human technology. Others were convinced it was something not of this earth. Skeptics argue that Area 51 has always been a stage for the unusual. During the Cold War, spy planes like the A-12 Oxcart and the SR-71 Blackbird flew at speeds and altitudes that seemed impossible at the time. The F-117 Nighthawk's angular silhouette could easily be mistaken for a flying saucer in the late 1970s, long before the public knew it existed. In this view, today's sightings are simply the next generation of prototypes: stealth drones, radar platforms, high-speed aircraft decades ahead of public knowledge. Strange lights don't mean aliens, they mean innovation. But even skeptics admit that some reports defy easy explanation. Accounts of craft hovering silently without visible lift, accelerating instantly without sound, or turning at right angles without banking push beyond what current human technology can do. If such flights are happening, they suggest breakthroughs in propulsion that either remain classified or come from somewhere else entirely. And the fact that these maneuvers mirror UFO sightings around the world, over oceans, cities, and military installations, only deepens the mystery. Could the skies above Groom Lake be the testing ground not only for human prototypes, but for craft derived from something recovered long ago? Photographic evidence remains scarce. Cameras are banned anywhere near the perimeter, and enforcement is strict. Most images come from miles away, distorted by heat shimmer and distance, showing little more than glowing dots. A few clearer frames have surfaced, but their authenticity is endlessly debated. Still, enough witnesses return to the desert year after year, convinced that even fleeting glimpses are worth the wait. For them, the act of watching is part of the experience, a ritual of patience, anticipation, and the possibility of seeing something extraordinary in the most restricted sky in America. Some researchers propose that the sightings are not accidents, but controlled displays. If alien-derived craft are being tested, what better way to normalize their presence than to let them be seen occasionally, blending into the broader UFO lore? In this theory, the lights are psychological camouflage, hiding the truth in plain sight. Others argue the opposite, that the military does everything possible to prevent leaks and that sightings represent genuine slip-ups, rare moments when secrecy falters. Either way, the effect is the same. The legend of Area 51's skies grows stronger with each unexplained light. For the dedicated sky watchers, the reward isn't always in proof. Sometimes it's in the moment itself, the desert silence broken by a sudden glow, the thrill of scanning the horizon with binoculars, the knowledge that they are part of a tradition stretching back decades. They stand at the edge of the forbidden, looking into a sky that should be empty, but often isn't. Even when nothing unusual appears, the experience leaves an imprint. And when something does, when a light rises silently, hovers, and vanishes in an instant, it becomes a memory burned forever, proof enough for those who were there. In the end, the skies above Area 51 embody the paradox of the base itself. They are both restricted and open, hidden and visible, ordinary and extraordinary. Whatever flies there does so with purpose, under layers of secrecy, in a place built to protect the unusual. Whether the lights belong to drones, stealth planes, or craft from another world, they are part of the living legend. Each sighting, each story, each unanswered question ensures that Groom Lake remains not just a testing ground, but a theater of mystery, a stage where the unknown plays out against the stars. Chapter 11. Government Silence and the 2013 Acknowledgement. For more than half a century, Area 51 was not simply secret, it was denied. Official maps showed only empty desert where Groom Lake stood. Federal agencies responded to Freedom of Information Act requests with redactions so heavy that pages were sometimes nothing but black lines. Even when presidents were asked about Area 51 directly, they dodged with jokes or changed the subject. This silence was not accidental. It was strategy. The less said, the less that could be challenged. And for decades, that silence fed the myth more than any admission ever could. The denial began in the Cold War, when secrecy was critical to national survival. Area 51 was the birthplace of the U-2 spy plane in the 1950s, followed by the A-12 Oxcart and the SR-71 Blackbird. These aircraft could fly higher and faster than anything else in the world, but their missions depended on surprise. Acknowledging the base publicly would have focused enemy attention on its every move. So the official line remained firm. There was no base. Groom Lake did not exist. Whatever happened there was beyond the reach of the public, and beyond confirmation. This approach worked in a practical sense. It allowed the CIA and Air Force to develop aircraft decades ahead of their time without interference. But secrecy is a double-edged sword. In the absence of facts, speculation thrives. By the late 1980s, Area 51's reputation had shifted from spy planes to spaceships. Bob Lazar's claims of working on alien craft at a facility linked to the base gave the rumors a new sensational focus. Suddenly, Area 51 wasn't just a testing ground, it was the epicenter of an extraterrestrial cover-up. And still, officials said nothing. That silence became suspicious in itself. If the base was simply for aircraft testing, why deny its existence so completely? Why treat the very name Area 51 as classified? Journalists, researchers, and ordinary citizens filed request after request, only to be told that no such facility could be confirmed. To believers, this was proof enough. The government was hiding something extraordinary. The more officials laughed off questions or refused to answer, the deeper the suspicion grew. Then in 2013, something unexpected happened. In response to a decades-old Freedom of Information Act request, the CIA released a set of declassified documents. For the first time, official papers openly identified Area 51 by name. There it was on the page, no longer a rumor but a confirmed location. Maps showed Groom Lake. Photographs revealed sleek black jets being tested there. The U-2, the A-12 Oxcart, aircraft whose existence had long been known to historians, were now officially tied to the secret desert base. For some, this was vindication. Decades of denials had finally given way to truth. The base was real. The secrecy, they said, had been justified during the Cold War but was no longer necessary. For others, the release was too neat, too carefully curated. The documents acknowledged only the spy plane programs, nothing more. There was no mention of UFOs, no alien craft, no underground facilities, no mysterious materials. To skeptics of the government's honesty, this was a classic half-measure, admit the obvious while leaving the extraordinary untouched. The media reaction reflected this divide. Mainstream outlets focused on the historical value of the documents, running archival photos of U-2s soaring above clouds, of engineers testing radar systems, of Cold War programs once cloaked in secrecy. They avoided the UFO angle almost entirely. Meanwhile, UFO researchers pounced on what was missing. If the government had hidden Area 51 itself for decades, they argued, what else might still be hidden? If officials could lie about the existence of a base that large, why should anyone trust their denials about aliens? In this way, the 2013 acknowledgement solved one mystery, but created another. It confirmed that Area 51 existed, but it did nothing to explain the base's enduring reputation as a hub of extraterrestrial secrecy. If anything, it strengthened that reputation. Because if the government could keep the existence of an entire installation secret for more than 50 years, what other truths might still be locked away? Satellite images only added fuel to the fire. Even after 2013, observers noted new hangars, longer runways, and expanded infrastructure appearing at Groom Lake. None were explained. The documents released in 2013 covered history from the 1950s and 1960s, but they said nothing about current operations. If the base had been used for spy planes half a century ago, what was it being used for now? Each new building seen from orbit sparked speculation. Was it for next-generation drones, hypersonic aircraft, or something even stranger? Believers argued that the 2013 release was a controlled disclosure. It gave just enough to appear transparent while steering attention toward conventional history. By focusing on spy planes, officials could deflect questions about UFOs without ever addressing them directly. The tactic was subtle but effective. Admit the existence of the stage while saying nothing about the play. Skeptics of the UFO narrative accepted the documents as proof that Area 51 was exactly what officials had always implied, an aircraft test site and nothing more. But those convinced of alien secrets saw the release as further evidence of manipulation. The paradox of government silence is that it fuels both doubt and belief. For skeptics, silence means there is nothing to talk about. For believers, silence means there is something too big to admit. Each new refusal to comment, each carefully worded response, each unexplained expansion of the base strengthens the sense that the truth is being withheld. And the longer the silence lasts, the more powerful the speculation becomes. The 2013 acknowledgement did not end the mystery of Area 51. If anything, it marked the beginning of a new chapter. Now that the base was real, the question shifted from, does it exist, to what happens there? And that question, perhaps intentionally, remains unanswered. In the years since, officials have rarely mentioned Area 51 again. When they do, It is only in the context of Cold War history. Current projects are left in shadow. The silence continues, and with it, the legend grows. In the end, the story of Area 51 is as much about what is not said as what is revealed. The base exists, but its secrets remain classified. The government has spoken, but only in carefully chosen words. For those who believe, the 2013 acknowledgement was a glimpse behind the curtain, a confirmation that the stage is real, even if the play remains hidden. For those who doubt, it was the final answer, proof that the myths were just myths and nothing more. Yet the desert still whispers, the skies still flicker with strange lights, and the questions remain. Government silence, it seems, will always say more than words. Chapter 12. The Unanswered Alien Secrets of Area 51. For all the stories, leaks, and speculation, the truth about Area 51 remains just out of reach. The fences are still up. The patrols still roam. The sky above remains restricted. And while we now know the base is real, the deeper question has never been answered. What alien secrets, if any, are still hidden there? After decades of rumors, the desert silence continues to speak louder than official words. Insiders describe disc-shaped craft tucked away under tarps, their metallic surfaces smooth and seamless. Some talk of cigar-shaped vessels as long as passenger jets, resting silently in underground bays. Others recall control systems with no buttons, alloys that bend and return to shape, windows that cloud over and then become transparent with a gesture. The details vary, but the pattern is constant. Objects that defy conventional engineering, guarded with the strictest secrecy. If even a fraction of these claims are true, then the Nevada desert hides not just aircraft, but technology centuries beyond our own. Then there are the accounts of biological evidence. Witnesses describe small humanoid beings, preserved in sealed containers and climate-controlled vaults. Some insist they were dead. Others whisper that one or two were alive, at least briefly, after recovery. Testimonies speak of autopsies performed under fluorescent lights, of surgical tables where beings with thin limbs and large heads were examined. Skeptics point to mannequins, experimental dummies, or disinformation. Believers argue that consistency across decades cannot be coincidence. If alien craft were recovered, why wouldn't their pilots be studied as well? But perhaps the most enduring unanswered question is not whether alien material is stored at Area 51, but why it remains hidden. If advanced propulsion systems have been recovered, why not share them? If alien alloys exist, why not revolutionize material science? If biological remains are preserved, why not confirm once and for all that we are not alone? The potential benefits are staggering: new sources of energy, new technologies, new understandings of life itself. And yet, nothing has been disclosed. The silence suggests a choice, that secrecy serves a greater purpose than revelation. Theories abound. Some argue that releasing alien technology would destabilize the global balance of power, granting whoever controls it overwhelming advantage. Others fear economic collapse if industries built on oil, gas, and conventional energy were suddenly obsolete. Still, others believe the secrecy is psychological, that humanity is not ready for the knowledge, that society would fracture if forced to confront the reality of extraterrestrial life. And then, there are the darker theories, suggesting that the technology is not hidden for protection, but for control. That those who hold it prefer to shape the pace of human progress, keeping extraordinary power in the hands of the few. The 2013 CIA acknowledgement that Area 51 exists answered only the simplest question. Yes, the base is real. Yes, spy planes were tested there, but nothing more. No word on underground tunnels. No mention of strange alloys or propulsion systems. No acknowledgement of beings in storage. By refusing to address the larger questions, the government left the legend intact. And in that silence, the unanswered alien secrets remain alive. Satellite imagery continues to show expansions at Groom Lake. New hangars appear, runways lengthen, infrastructure grows. None are explained. Observers speculate. Are these for hypersonic aircraft, massive drones, or something even stranger? Each new structure is interpreted as a clue, a sign that the work inside has not stopped. For skeptics, these are normal military upgrades. For believers, they are evidence that the base is still hiding extraordinary machines, perhaps even flying them under the desert night sky. Witnesses outside the perimeter still report lights darting across the horizon, glowing orbs hovering silently, objects accelerating instantly without sound. Some dismiss them as drones or flares. Others insist they move in ways no human craft should. Even now, in the 21st century, with advanced cameras and satellites, the sightings remain inconclusive. But inconclusive is not the same as disproven. The possibility endures. And so the unanswered alien secrets of Area 51 persist. Are there underground vaults filled with machines from another world? Are there beings preserved in sealed containers, waiting to be studied? Has alien propulsion been reverse engineered into human aircraft, flying decades ahead of what the public knows? Or is the entire legend a smokescreen, a myth cultivated to protect very human secrets? No one outside the highest levels of clearance can say for certain. That uncertainty is the fuel of the mystery, the reason Area 51 remains more legend than base. The paradox is simple. If alien technology does exist at Area 51, the proof is locked away where the public cannot see it. And if it does not exist, the secrecy is so complete that it prevents anyone from knowing for sure. Either way, the result is the same. Unanswered questions, persistent rumors, and a desert that feels like it guards not just military projects, but cosmic truths. Believers say the evidence is in the patterns, the secrecy, the compartmentalization, the expansions, the lights in the sky. Skeptics say the evidence is in the absence. No photos, no samples, no documents. Both sides agree on one thing. Area 51 is unmatched in its ability to conceal. Whether it hides alien craft or only advanced human prototypes, it is the most secretive patch of desert in America, and perhaps the world. In the end, the unanswered alien secrets of Area 51 are not just about craft or bodies. They are about us. They reflect humanity's hunger to know if we are alone, our suspicion of authority, our fascination with what lies beyond the stars. Area 51 is a mirror of that hunger, a place where our questions echo without reply. Until the gates open, until the vaults are revealed, until proof is undeniable, the legend will remain. A desert scar will continue to glow under the Nevada moon, silent and impenetrable, holding secrets that may never be told. And so we are left with questions. What lies under the hangars? What flies above Groom Lake when no one is meant to see? What truth is worth guarding so fiercely in the middle of the desert? Perhaps someday answers will come. Until then, the unanswered alien secrets of Area 51 will endure, half myth, half possibility, entirely compelling. A story that belongs not only to Nevada, not only to America, but to the entire human race, waiting in the silence for disclosure that may never arrive.